Well, joining us now to discuss Matt Gaetz and so much more is Tomi Lahren, host of OutKick's Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Now, Matt Gaetz is pulled out as Donald Trump's pick to be the next U.S. Attorney General. Trump posted on Truth Social saying, "I greatly appreciate the recent efforts of Matt Gaetz in seeking approval to be Attorney General. He was doing very well, but at the same time did not want to be a distraction for the administration, for which he has much respect." Now, he was facing release of a potentially damaging House Ethics Committee report, but more to the point, I think there was at least 4 Republican senators who were not going to vote for him under any circumstances, meaning he wasn't going to get through. Tomi, what's your take on this?
Well, I'll tell you this. I think this was very strategic. I think both the nomination and the withdrawal of Matt Gaetz were very strategic. And in my opinion, it was the perfect move. Really, the art of the deal here, if you're talking about 4D chess. And I'll tell you why. Because Matt Gaetz is obviously the most controversial person that could be nominated for this station. We know that. There's few folks that Trump could have nominated that would be more controversial, that would have more liberal talking heads and Democrats wailing than Matt Gaetz, right? So if you select someone first that's very controversial, that takes a lot of heat, then when that person withdraws and then you select your second choice and that person may also be somewhat controversial, it's always going to pale in comparison to your first choice, which was Matt Gaetz.
You're right. I think he was a bit of a clay pigeon thrown up there to direct fire away from some of the other nominees that are going through here. Another one I want to talk about, though, Trump has named his transition co-chair, Linda McMahon, as his pick to serve as the next Secretary of the Department of Education, a department which he has vowed correctly, in my view, to abolish because I think it's useless and makes kids stupider. McMahon, though, of course, we know is co-founder and former CEO of WWE Wrestling with an impressive business career, but also, look at this, she's not afraid to get in the ring either.
But, Mom,
come on.
just remember, like you told me when I was a little girl, this is gonna hurt me a lot worse than it hurts you.
Get her!
Now, imagine her in the confirmation hearings pulling that sort of stunt. But seriously, though, what do you make of Linda McMahon as a pick to take over and ultimately devolve and tear apart this Department of Education bureaucracy, which just sits on top of all the schools that the states run and seems to make them all worse?
Well, listen, I think that she is a brilliant, badass woman. And honestly, I think those clips of her on WWE make me like her even more. She is not only a strong businesswoman, but she's just a strong woman in general. And it's going to take that kind of intestinal fortitude to do what Donald Trump wants to do. And that's to really root out the Department of Education, or at least reform it greatly, and send a lot of that power and a lot of that money back to the states where these educational decisions belong, at the state and the local level, with educators and with folks that know their students and know their communities best. So I think she's been around the Trump team for a long time. This isn't her first opportunity with that team, but I think this is an excellent choice. I can't wait to see what she's going to do. And listen, Donald Trump has so many fierce and strong women that are serving alongside him in his cabinet in very high positions. Susie Wiles is another one. So for all those folks that said Donald Trump was a misogynist and he was a sexist, well, that's pretty incredible. He has so many strong and powerful women that are leading him through this next administration.
Absolutely right. Very well said. Now, I want to move on, though, to some grimmer news here. And this week we had the sentencing of the killer of Laken Riley, a woman who we've spoken about many times on this show, young nursing student who was killed by an illegal Venezuelan immigrant. We've seen distressing footage of when Laken Riley's family found out about her death. We heard in court this week horrendous details about her death and how she fought. Yet, although many expected her killer to get the death penalty, the district attorney opted not to pursue it, saying it would cause collateral consequences to undocumented defendants, i.e. illegals. Now, no surprise, this DA was backed by George Soros. Tell me, this just seems to underline the real consequences of the horrendous open borders policy that America has suffered under over the last 4 years, and it really should help Trump's mandate to begin the deportations and really secure that border. What do you think?
Well, I think that this trial of Laken Riley and what tragically happened to her, I think that that was top of mind for a lot of voters in the country when they voted on November 5th. And I think immigration played a huge role. It was at least the number 2 issue for some people. It was the number 1 issue for me. It certainly was that. But I'll tell you this, it also shows the consequences when you have these Soros-backed, radical, extreme activist DAs. So the Republican Party needs to do a better job of combating this. Oftentimes we let these races go under the radar and we don't pay enough attention and to the consequences that they could have. And this is a perfect example of that. Jose Ibarra should have never been in this country. Laken Riley was failed by Joe Biden and by this government. And I would hope that the Biden administration in their last couple of months would see this and reverse course. But they're still flying people in by the tens of thousands. They still have a CBP1 app. We've got a caravan of at least 1,000 people headed our way. And the Biden administration doesn't seem to be taking this seriously at all. A disgrace through and through. But I'll tell you this, January is coming. Donald Trump is coming. Tom Homan is coming. And there's going to be a real reckoning in this country.
Well, I think you're right. That Tom Homan pick is fantastic. We spoke about him last week. But finally, Tommy, before I let you go, this story, I love this here. A Minnesota hospital has issued an all-staff apology. Now, why do you think this is? Well, it turns out employees complained about the hospital giving out free Chick-fil-A, which is, of course, the fast food chicken chain that's linked to Christians. And the hospital said, we received feedback from some colleagues who were concerned or offended by this occurrence. And they'd like to, widen our lens of inclusivity, and they appreciate their colleagues continuing our values of respect and justice. How is it that the left, after all of this and the lessons we've learned over the last election period, are still losing their minds over Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, exactly. And, I'll tell you this. I have never seen a Chick-fil-A drive-thru that wasn't absolutely packed with cars going around the corner. Everybody loves Chick-fil-A. It doesn't matter your political affiliation. It doesn't matter your religion. You love Chick-fil-A. That's just an American institution right there. But, I find it incredibly privileged for some folks to be so offended by the free food that they're given. If that really is your top priority to complain about, boy, you sure live a luxe and privileged life. Maybe it's time to reevaluate your priorities. Maybe it's time to get over it. And maybe it's time to just touch grass and get back to reality, because this ain't it.
That's right. Tomi Lahren, thank you so much for your time. I'm now hungry for a Chick-fil-A. Really appreciate it.